today? All right. Like I said, my name is Liz Schaller. I'm the NIMAC director. And today we're going to have kind of a whirlwind training for you, annual training for you. If you're a returning user, there may still be some things, some updates that you're interested in. And for our new folks, hopefully this will be a really helpful overview of the NIMAC, the different NIMAC user types, and then also how to work in the system, how to use the NIMAC watch list, and all that good stuff. Today's webinar is in two parts. The first part is we'll walk through a set of PowerPoint slides that cover some uh, NIMAC kind of basic background information. We'll talk about NIMAS and procurement. We'll talk about system features and how you work in the NIMAC system. And then also how to utilize NIMAS files because some authorized users are directly involved in accessible format production. So we'll cover all that stuff in the PowerPoint. And then we'll switch gears to a live demo where I'll log into the system and show you how to search and download files and assign files to accessible media producers. So all those important things that you need to know how to do in the system. We have several learning objectives for you today. We hope that you'll come away from this training with an understanding of the requirements for NIMAS eligibility, with the knowledge of how to download NIMAS files, as well as how to assign NIMAS files in the system, and also with an understanding of how to utilize the Watchlist service. And with that, I'm going to ask Alexa to put a link in the chat for our exit survey, which does cover the learning objectives. If you could complete this survey, just a minute long at the end of our training today. It's really helpful for us as we're designing future trainings and making sure that you have all of the information and resources that you need as our authorized users. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexa to walk through some NIMAC basics.
Perfect. Thanks, Liz, and hello, everyone. Good to see you this afternoon. We are going to kick this off with a little bit about NIMAC Basics. And so the NIMAC project was created by IDEA 2004, and we are the National Source File Repository for K through 12 textbooks and instructional materials. We make our NIMAS files available for use in producing accessible media formats for K through 12 instructional materials. We have received over 90,000 file sets. That's a new number for us, so that's very exciting, from over 200 educational publishers. And we are happy to announce that all 50 states, the eligible territories, and the Department of Defense all coordinate with us. So I mentioned NIMAS files earlier. You might be wondering what NIMAS is. So NIMAS is the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Standard. So that S is standard and the C is NIMAC. So that's how you can tell those two apart. Under IDEA, this is the only file format that we're allowed to accept. We can't accept EPUBs or PDFs or anything. It has to be NIMAS. NIMAS is an XML-based source file format used to produce accessible formats. It is not distributed directly to students, and because it is not generated as part of a print or digital book production, it can take several weeks for it to be produced. And so we get files. The only mechanism to require NIMAS files from the publisher is that book adoption contract or a purchase agreement. There is currently no blanket requirement for publishers to submit files to us. States and districts have been able to require NIMAS since July of 2006. And ideally, when NIMAS is included in contracts, a file will already be available when a need a student has is identified. And the types of materials we receive NIMAS for are textbooks, workbooks, supplementary readers, and some ancillary materials such as Blackline Masters. Generally exempt from the NIMAC are pre-2006 titles because that predates the NIMAC. We can't accept college textbooks or reference books. We can accept some trade books, but they have to be tied to the curriculum with either a teacher edition ISBN or another ISBN from a student book. And so teachers' editions are generally exempt, but we can accept the student-facing materials from those teachers' editions. And we can also now accept NIMAS files for some digital instructional materials. And so what is an authorized user? So that's you guys. An authorized user is someone who has been designated by their state coordinator to have an account that provides full access to the NIMAC repository. These individuals are generally from within the educational structure of the state. And in some states, the state coordinator also functions as an authorized user. Those people are hybrid state coordinators. Authorized users can search and download files from the NIMAC. They can also assign files for download by our registered accessible media producers, or our AMPs. AMP accounts are freely available, but they do have a more limited access to the repository than authorized user accounts. And Liz is going to show us how we can assign files to accessible media producers in the demo. So does anybody have any questions about the NIMAC Basics there? Any questions about accessible media producers or anything of that nature? I'm not seeing anything in the chat at this point, but do feel free to come off mute and speak up.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and keep going, but please don't hesitate to put your question in the chat at any point, or when we pause for questions, like Alexa said, feel free to come off mute and ask your question as well. We're going to jump in now to NIMAS and procurement. Procurement is it's a really important component of the accessible format production process. And we want to make sure that you as authorized users understand how this process works. So like we mentioned earlier, under IDEA, there was no blanket requirement for publishers to submit files to the NIMAC. So we do not by default receive NIMAS files for every item that's produced for an educational curriculum. Instead, the mechanism to require NIMAS from publishers is the book adoption contract or purchase agreement that is entered into by the SCA or LEA. So including NIMAS language in those contracts is really essential to ensuring that the NIMAC will receive the files the students need before the need for an accessible format is identified. It's important to note too that requiring NIMAS from publishers is a legal obligation for all SEAs and LEAs that coordinate with the NIMAC. This inclusion, again, of the language in the instructional materials adoption process or contract ensures that we have an NIMAS file in the system already in advance of any need for an accessible format that may be identified for the coming school year. It is a requirement under the legislation and it is not optional. On the screen here, you'll see some sample contract language published from Academy. We worked closely with them on this. And so this is language that you can drag and drop right into the contracts that you have or your state or your districts have with your publishers. There is a section here you'll notice with the date that the publisher agrees to submit the NIMAS file on or before. So do make sure you fill that in. And we encourage folks to require NIMAS to be submitted far in advance of the school year during which the instructional material is being used, because Braille especially can take many months to produce. So we want to make sure we have the files in the system well before that need is identified. Okay. And now in a related note, the NIMAC is pretty far upstream of timely delivery of accessible formats. So NIMAS is really essential to the production of accessible formats, but we're very far removed from the students actually using that Braille and large print or accessible digital file in the classroom. So we wanted to get more information about NIMAS and the NIMAC's impact on timely delivery, and we embarked on a case study around that topic last year with our external evaluator, True North Evaluation. We focused on data collection in three case study states, Ohio, Oregon, and Utah. And then we also offered some surveys and focus groups to a wider national audience as well. Our case study looked at two key questions. The first is what are the positive benefits to timely delivery of newly created accessible instructional materials when NIMAS files for the materials are already in the NIMAC system? And then the second question was what practices, including those procurement contracts, facilitate the timely delivery of accessible instructional materials? So we looked at both questions as well as some sub-questions for each of those. Our full case study report is now published and available on our website. Alexa's going to drop those links in the chat for you. We encourage you to take a look at it. You're more than welcome to share it with your colleagues as well. I will say it is quite a lengthy document. It's well over 100 pages long, and we are planning to develop a more condensed report with some key takeaways for you, and we will share that out with you as soon as we have it. There is an executive summary at the top of the report, an extremely user-friendly table of contents that will take you right to the sections of the report that you're most interested in, and a fairly brief conclusion and list of recommendations at the end. So you could definitely get those little bits if you don't want to look through the whole report, but it is really interesting. And we are already utilizing some of that feedback and some of those recommendations to improve our current technical assistance efforts, as well as planning for our next 5-year grant cycle. The NIMAC's in our last year of our 5-year grant. So we are already considering what we can do to better support timely delivery in our next 5-year grant. If you do take a look at the report and you have any suggestions for implementing any of those recommendations or any questions at all about the case study, please don't hesitate to reach out about that. Okay, and now I want to jump in to working with NIMAS, but before I do, does anyone have any questions at all about that procurement topic or anything related to the case study? Okay. If we don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and hop into this next section. So even if you're not an authorized user that's directly involved in accessible format production, I'm sure that you work closely with accessible media producers. So some of the tools that I'm going to talk about or opportunities in this next section, they may be things that you can share with the accessible media producers that you work with. The first is that I'm really pleased to say that we are going to be offering kind of a reboot or a redo of the two 6-part webinar series on textbook transcription from start to finish that we offered back in 2022. So it's been a few years. We're going to have a series that focuses on Braille 2000 and Braille Blaster and workflows for textbook transcription utilizing those tools. And then one series that focuses on Duxbury and NimPro and working with NIMAS. Both of these series are going to be archived and available on our website afterward as well. So if you can't make it to every session, don't worry, they will be available on our website after. Our Duxbury webinars are going to kick off May 28th and run through July 1st. And then our Braille 2000 webinars are going to kick off June 16th and run through July 21st. And Alexa, I think, put both of our registration links in the chat. So again, even if you're not the target audience for these, although you are more than welcome to attend, please disseminate, please share with folks in your state or in your agency who might be interested in this little kind of refresher course, or it's a great course for beginners as well who are just starting out with textbook transcription. The next thing I want to highlight is that last fall, we worked with Ocali's AT and AIM Center on a training around the large print templates and macros that they developed for working in Word and converting NIMAS files to large print. Their templates and macros are downloadable from the training link. The training walks you through how to set your computer up to utilize them and helps you with some of the basics. They also have a very in-depth and user-friendly user guide that can help guide you through that process as well. And if you do have any questions as you are kind of getting started, please feel free to reach out to Ocali. They're super helpful. We also had them join us earlier this year. We had an in-person NIMAC AMP camp, and they delivered this training in person, and it was a huge success. And I think a lot of people have come away with some new skills. So we're just really happy to highlight this. And like I said, reach out to us. We can direct you to the folks who can better answer your questions, or you can reach out to Ocali directly. Their contact information is on their website, where the training is also archived. Additionally, we wanted to highlight a free EPUB conversion tool as well if you work with students who utilize EPUB. It's called the Daisy Pipeline Tool, Pipeline 2, and it was developed by the Daisy Consortium, and it is absolutely free and super easy to use to just quickly convert NIMAS files or DT book files into an EPUB format that then your student can access using their preferred EPUB reader. You can use the link Alexa put in the chat to download the most recent version. And then on screen here are just some basic tips for doing that quick conversion. I think the interface is maybe a little intimidating the first time that you get on. So we also have a brief how-to video that actually shows you the screens and walks you through the process as well. But the main things are to select that correct translation script. So it's the DT book to EPUB script. And then select the correct NIMAS XML file that you want to convert. So you do need to unzip the NIMAS file set and select just that XML file. And then as you're going through the different options, many of them you can just ignore, but we're highlighting the ones that you really need to actually do. One is to select no validation. Sometimes the validation process will catch errors that really wouldn't cause a problem with the conversion, but it will halt the conversion from continuing. So go ahead and select no validation, and then check that NIMAS is your input in the input box, and then you run the conversion. Most conversions take just a couple of minutes. Some larger textbooks can take a little longer than that, but really is pretty quick and easy. And if you have any issues at all, or you want to report a suggestion or something to improve the tool, please do reach out to us and let us know. And then finally, I also wanted to highlight our Braille 2000 and Duxbury user groups. We have two Braille software user groups that meet quarterly. These are led by experienced Braille transcribers. They select a kind of subtopic and present on that topic for about 15 minutes. And then we open it up for discussion and questions and getting other folks' perspective on whatever the topic is that quarter. They're a lot of fun. I feel like I've learned quite a bit. I am not a transcriber by trade, but I've gotten a lot of insight from attending the user group meetings over the years. If we do send those invites out to all of our regular users, but if you maybe missed the email or you're not sure if you have the registration for our upcoming meetings, we do have both a Braille 2000 and a Duxbury meeting coming up in May. Just reach out to us at nimac@aph.org and we'll send you those registration links. Okay, we'll pause here again, see if anyone has any questions about any of those conversion tools or anything else I mentioned before I hand it back over to Alexa. Are you seeing any questions, Alexa?
We did have one in the chat. Jay asked how many state coordinators were hybrid, and I pulled the report for that. It looks like 26, so about half.
Oh, that's fun.
So,
Yeah, just
yeah.
about half. Good question. Yeah, it really just depends on your state's workflow and what makes the most sense for you. Some state coordinators are super, super involved in accessible format procurement, and then others not so much. So it really varies quite a bit. Okay. Well, take it away, Alexa.
All right, great. So we will get into learning about some system features and services. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Watchlist Research and Expedite Service. And that's fun because that's kind of my purview. I see a couple of my regular Watchlist users on here. So, if you are not familiar with the watch list, it is a service that we offer where when you search the NIMAC and you don't find the ISBN that you're looking for, you can go into the watch list feature of your account, which I think Liz will show us in the demo, and add that ISBN to your watch list. We will get an email with a report attached to it, and someone from our team, typically me, but not always, will research and let you know either if we can request that ISBN, that material from the publisher, or if it's out of scope, we can research it and let you know what accessibility options there are for you to get that material. And I think I covered all that in the first slide, so we will move along. Oh, yes. So email notifications. The system generated email notifications you get from our team will come from no reply -NIMAC at overdrive.com. We do generally recommend that you add this email address to your whitelist, and I will drop that in the chat. But it's important that you add that because, as we know, these spam filters are getting more and more powerful, and we sometimes have trouble hearing from you guys. So you may just want to add this email address to your whitelist, or you may need to reach out to your IT department and have them let those emails through just so you are open to communications from us. The next thing we're going to talk about is MathML. So you may not be familiar with MathML, but what that is an optional XML markup that is used for math and scientific notation. The benefit of MathML is that when software supports it, it can automatically generate Braille or other formats. In the past, math was most often provided in NIMAS files as images, and those cannot automatically be converted into Braille. We do know that not all software supports MathML, and since we're seeing more and more files come in with MathML, it was important to develop this No MathML download. And so what that is a download option that if a NIMAS file includes MathML, you can choose to download the file without it, so it'll work with your software. And we will show this download option during the demo, but right now we're going to take a look at some screenshots so you can see what a file that contains MathML looks like. And so that first thing we're going to talk about is the No MathML download option. You can see that's highlighted in the little red box down below where it says full download No MathML. And that's what you're going to want if your software doesn't work with MathML. And here we can see it in the system record. It's going to be down there in the bottom right-hand corner next to MathML. You can see here, I think that's MathML 3.0. It could also be MathML 2.0. And maybe here eventually we'll have MathML 4.0 because that's coming out here, I think, soonish. And then if you've already downloaded the file and you want to check and see if the file you downloaded contains MathML, you can see it's mentioned at the top of the XML file here in the declaration area. And so this is a screenshot of our website. You can see the login button up here next to the Search the NIMAC. And I think we will pause here. I don't see any questions in the chat, but feel free to come off mute before we head into the demo portion.
Yes, please do. Like Alexa mentioned, I'll be walking through pretty much everything that we talked about during the presentation and the demo. But if you do have any questions now, happy to take them. Okay. So this is just a brief outline of what we'll cover in the demo. We'll talk about searching and downloading as well as assigning files to AMPs. And then I'll show you the watch list and how you add an item to your watch list. I'll show you where you can find publisher and AMP contact information in your account, as well as how to add sub-users to your account and the reports that you have access to. So it'll be a lot of information, but please again don't hesitate to stop me and ask a question as I'm going through. With that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and we'll switch over to the website. Okay, here we go. All right. So as we saw on the screen, our website does look a little bit different. You may have noticed. We did a website refresh last summer, so it's more or less organized the same way, but instead of having the all of the tabs across the top of your screen, you now have a menu, a collapsible menu that opens up in the top right-hand side of the screen. So if you click on that menu, you'll see all of the same tabs that you might be familiar with from past visits to our website, but with one very exciting new feature which is at the very top of the menu. We now have the ability to search our informational site. So you can utilize this search box here up at the top of the navigation bar. I also want to show you quickly the authorized user page. This is where we will archive the training for this year, the one that you're in right now. So you'll have access to that and the slides later on. We also link out to other resources on this page for working in the NIMAC system and resources for working with NIMAS. We also have updates. So for instance, our training courses for Duxbury and Brill 2000 users are advertised on our website here. So you'll see updates at the bottom of the page as well. Our full website is available in English as well as in Spanish. So if you click that Spanish, it'll translate the full page for you. And then the last thing I want to show you is these two buttons at the top here. The search button is for searching the NIMAC inventory, not for searching the website. So again, if you want to search our informational website, you have to go to that navigation bar and utilize the search box at the very top of that. This search the NIMAC button is for the repository. And then this login button will take you right over to your landing page where you will log into the system. I do want to note that your NIMAC username is not your email address. This is a common error, especially for folks who don't use the system too often, but you'll have a username that ends in .au.admin, and if you happen to misplace your credentials, just reach out to us. We will send them to you, no problem at all. If we log in here, the first thing I'll show you is, so your landing page is going to be your inventory page if you're an authorized user. If you're a hybrid state coordinator in this training, your landing page is going to be your registered authorized users. So that'll be what you see when you first log in. You'll have those three screens with your registered users. Otherwise, you'll see the inventory here. And we'll go up first and look at our account information. So go up to user information, my account. This shows you here first the organization that you're registered under. So every authorized user is registered under your SCA. Your state coordinator has to add you in the system. So that is what will be listed up top here, followed by your account information. And then on the left side of your screen, you'll see your contact information. None of this is editable by you. If you do need any changes made to your information in the system, you will need to reach out to us via email and we'll make those edits for you. I also want to note here at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that there's a statement that says authorized user accounts are not transferable. If you need to have a new AU designated, please contact your NIMAC state coordinator. This is really important. Authorized user accounts are unique in the NIMAC in that the way that our system, our digital rights management works in our system is that every file that's downloaded from the NIMAC is fingerprinted and watermarked and associated with you as an individual, the account holder. So when you leave your position, uh, your account needs to be removed and a new account needs to be created for the person who is taking over your role. So even if it's the same exact role, a new person needs to be established, a new account needs to be established. You're welcome to work with your state coordinator to do that. We also help facilitate that routinely. So either way is completely fine. But it is important. You cannot share your authorized user account. It is totally fine to have multiple authorized users at the same organization. So that's also important to note. And I'll show you here. Whereas with an accessible media producer account, multiple people can share that same account. The only option for having additional access to this account is using this sub-user functionality, which is exclusively intended to be used if you are going to be taking a longer vacation. Maybe you're going to be out on parental leave or something of that nature, and you need someone to have access to your account temporarily. You can add a sub-user here. You just add their first and last name and email address and click Save Changes, and they'll receive an email with account credentials. So they'll have their own credentials for logging into the system, and they will have access for 2 months, and then their credentials will expire. So again, this is just a temporary setup for if there is a time when you need someone else to have access to your account. Otherwise, if you have a colleague who routinely seems to need access to the system, please, recommend that they be added as another authorized user. That is completely fine. We have many authorized users from, the same organization, two or more from the same organization. That's no problem at all. The next thing I want to show you is the contact information that you have access to in the system if you need it. The first list we have is a list of all of our active publisher organizations. It is organized alphabetically, and here you'll see the administrative contact. This is the links to their email address as well as a phone number. You can also click on the organization name and it'll take you in to see their contact information as well. Um, you may need this if, I'll show you just here in a minute about the watch list, and we encourage you, if you do need a NIMAS file for something that's not in the system, to use the watch list so that we can facilitate that request with the publisher. But if you're in a situation where maybe you've been waiting and the school district that you are helping out doesn't have the print books yet, and you really need a PDF because they're working on the Braille right now, this is an option. You can come in and look for the admin contact at the publisher and reach out to them directly. We also are more than happy to facilitate any of those sorts of conversations. So you're welcome to reach out to us first, and then we can help make that connection too. But you are also, more than welcome to utilize the contact information here for those purposes. I also wanted to show you we have a listing of our accessible media producers in the system as well with their contact information. So again, you'll have the organization name, their contact name with their email address linked, and then their phone number. And if you click on the account, you'll also be able to see their format capabilities here. So if you kind of just want to double check, make sure that the person you're assigning the file to can produce the format that's needed, you can quickly look at their format capabilities. I will note sometimes we have, when we have AMPs, especially from school districts or multiple AMPs from the same organization, they should always have the last name of the person included in the name of the organization. Because when I show you the page where you assign files, it would be very confusing otherwise. But if you encounter a situation where you're in that list and you're just not quite sure who the right person is to assign the file to, also feel free to reach out to us and we'll try to get that straightened out for you because it can be a little confusing sometimes. And then finally, before I pause here, I want to show you how to utilize the watch list. So Alexa mentioned the watch list during the PowerPoint portion, and she is typically the person who fields those requests for you. So if you've submitted a request in the past, she will field that. This is again the place where you go if you can't find the ISBN that you need already in the system. You can go here and add it. You can add either the 10 or 13 digit ISBN, no hyphens, and then you can utilize the memo field. You don't have to, but it's very helpful for us. Sometimes it can be quite challenging to find information about textbooks online. A lot of publishers' websites don't have a good record of their inventory these days. So, if you do happen to have the information, specifically title, publisher, and copyright year of what you're looking for, that is very helpful to include when you place your request, but it is not required. The other thing that you can use the memo field for, if you want to, is to indicate what accessible format is needed. And this can come into play sometimes when we are reaching out to a publisher that we don't already have a relationship with. It can help us to make a better case for them submitting the file if they have some more specific information about what is needed. So if we're able to say this is a request for Braille or large print, that can be helpful. So again, not required, but helpful. And then once you fill those boxes in, you just hit create. And then at the bottom of the screen, you'll get a little notification that says successfully created new watch list item. Uh, the only time you won't get that message is if we already have the item in the system. It will not let you submit a new item to the watch list if we already have that item in the system. And then down here, you'll see the date that this was added, and then you'll also see a status column. The status will change as the file progresses through the process. So not submitted to the NIMAC means we do not have the file in the system at all. There is another status that indicates that the file is in the system, but it's not certified yet. So that's what you'll see when we receive the file, but it's not yet certified. And then there'll be a status for when the file is certified. Uh, as soon as the file is certified, you'll also receive an automated email letting you know that it's available for download. So this is not the only place that you would find that information. You will get that email notification, like Alexa mentioned earlier in the training, that automated email that lets you know that it is available to download. Okay, with that, I will take a brief pause and see if anyone has any questions so far. You are more than welcome to unmute if you do have a question. All right.
Hello, can you
Oh,
hear me?
yes. Hi, Jay.
Hi, hey, Liz. Hey, Alexa. This is Jay Maresca, the Braille Supervisor at State Services for the Blind. Real quick, the sub user used to be a 3-month account. I see you changed it to a 2-month account.
Yes, I believe so. I can double check on that for you and let you know.
Mhm.
But my
I was just,
understanding
I
is
was,
that it's two now.
yeah, okay. I was just curious why they changed it from 3 to 2 months.
Yeah, I'll ask Overdrive about that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Okay, well, the next thing I'll show you then is how to search in the system. So you can search at any time because you have a little handy search box at the top of the screen. But if you click on the NIMAC logo in the top left, that will also take you back to the inventory landing page where you'll be able to see the inventory as well. We do recommend that you use the unhyphenated 13-digit ISBN to do all of your searches in the NIMAC, as it will yield the most accurate search results. Okay. And so when you do a search for an ISBN and you return just a single record, this is what that will look like. The kind of collapsed inventory version will show you some really basic metadata information, like whether or not it's a state edition and the copyright year of the material and the publisher. And then if you click on view title details, you will see a little bit more information about the file, including whether or not it has that MathML tagging in it. And then if you look to the right, you actually don't even need to enter the record if you don't want to. But if you do click on that, view details, expand the record, then you'll see you have an add to my downloads option on the right of your screen. And if I select that, you'll see that download page that we looked at earlier in the PowerPoint with your multiple download options. You have your full download with MathML tagging, or your full download with no MathML tagging, where the system will strip out the MathML, and instead you will receive all of the images of all of the math that's included in the material. So you can choose either of those download options. Or if you are working on, all you need is the text for the moment, you can instead just select the XML download only. It excludes the images. It's a much smaller download and much quicker. And so sometimes that's useful, just depends on what you're working on. And then finally, this PDF only download can be really helpful if you are interested in verifying if this is actually the file that you need. The NIMAS PDF includes just the title and copyright pages of the book. So you can download that PDF and just quickly take a look and make sure that it matches the print book that you are needing to convert. I'll go ahead and select the full download with MathML here. Then below that, you'll see the full text of the limitation of use agreement. This is the same agreement that you agreed to when you became a NIMAC authorized user, and you do have to accept the terms each time you download a file from the system. If you don't agree, you will not be able to download the file. So you will need to hit that agreement button. And then you'll see on the screen here a pop-up that says that your download request was submitted, and you can visit your My Downloads page to complete the download process. You can access your My Downloads from any time at the top right corner. So we'll go over here. And this is your download queue. As you can see right now, this file is in the processing status. When you are downloading a larger file, a file with a lot of images or a full textbook, it can take, sometimes a minute or two to process with the processing there, doing that fingerprinting and watermarking that I mentioned earlier. So you can just refresh your screen, and there we go. The download is available. The other thing I want to mention here quickly is our file quality feedback button. We added this maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. It's hard to say. Time is flying. If you are encountering any issues at all with the file that you downloaded from the NIMAC, please report them to us. It's very helpful, even if you will not benefit from reporting the issue because, say, you have a quick deadline, you're just going to have to fix the Braille yourself and, move along. You're not going to benefit from the updated file. Someone else might. So we really, really encourage you to report those issues. This file feedback form is pretty easy to use. It automatically populates with all of the information about the file that you downloaded, including the download type, which helps us with troubleshooting. So knowing if you downloaded with or without MathML is very important. And then there's just a few boxes for you to fill in. The first is the feedback, whatever the issue is, and please, be specific about the problem that you're having and the nature of your issue. The second piece of information that's helpful for us to know is what format you're trying to produce. And there's a drop-down option here. You can only select one, so please select the one that's most applicable. And then we do require that you let us know what software you're using. So what software are you trying to open the file in, or what software are you trying to work with the file in? You can put multiple if you want to describe your full workflow, but we specifically need to know which software it is that you're encountering the issue in. And then finally, um, there's an option here to include the printing number of the material that you're working with. This can be helpful if the information, like the issue that you're encountering is that the content of the book is pretty different from the NIMAS file that you just downloaded. It can be helpful for us to know that the issue that you may be seeing could be just a printing difference between what's been submitted to the NIMAC and the material that you're currently working with. So this field is not required, but it can be helpful. And once you fill that in, you just click submit, and then we'll receive an automated email that includes all of this, and we will get back to you quickly within a business day and troubleshoot and assist with next steps with that file. I also want to show you the AMP assignment workflow as well. So if you are not needing to download the file, but instead you are trying to assign the file to an accessible media producer, you will select that option here. And then on the AMP assignments page, you'll see a couple of drop downs. The first is where you select which account you are trying to assign it to. And this is where I talked about earlier. If there are multiple people at an agency or a school district or what have you, their last name should be included in the name of the organization. But if it's not, and you're just not quite sure if you're assigning to the right person, just let us know and we can help you with that. So go ahead and choose an account. I will choose one of our test accounts here. And then the second dropdown you need to select is the accessible format. You will only see the format options that the AMP you selected as listed under their format capabilities. Those will be the only options you'll be able to select from. I do want to note that we will be adding eBraille as an option. It should be added to the system sometime this summer. Overdrive is working on that for us now. For now, you can just utilize the digital Braille options for that. So you want to go ahead and select the format that you're needing, and then you just hit submit. And at the top of the screen here, you'll see a message that indicates that the title has been successfully assigned. If you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, this is really helpful, and it's I think why the format designation can be important, even though it's not something where you're limiting the AMP to producing only the format that you select by any means. But you can see quickly here all of the AMP assignments for this particular file and the format designations of those assignments. So you can kind of quickly look and see like, oh, it looks like this agency is producing this book in embossed braille. And it looks like this book has been produced in embossed UEB with Nemeth versus just UEB. So whatever the case may be, you can quickly see that information here, and that can be really helpful. If you made an assignment and you realize that was not the right AMP, you can hit this unassign button and it will unassign the file from them. As soon as you assign a file to an accessible media producer, they will receive an automated email indicating to them that they can download that file. And the same way, if you unassign a file, it will be removed from the accessible media producer's download queue. Accessible media producers can only download NIMAS files that have been assigned to them by an authorized user. So anything that you revoke permission on, they can no longer download. And with that, I think I will pause again and see if anyone has any questions about either of those workflows. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. So quickly, I will also show you, I think especially if you are an authorized user who's working with an agency to produce on your behalf, you may be needing to assign multiple files to that agency rather than individual ISBNs. And if that's the case, you can utilize the quoted phrase search in the NIMAC instead of relying on the ISBN search. So here I've searched the phrase illustrative math, and you'll see that we have 176 search results for illustrative math in the title or series field. You can utilize the filters on the left-hand side of the screen to help narrow down the material that you're looking for. So let's say we know that we need a certain grade level. Let's do grade level. Let's say grade 4. And then let's say we need just files that are published by LearnZillion. This program is actually distributed by multiple publishers, so we can narrow it down by the publisher filter. So now we have 9 results. And you can look through those results on your screen here if that's useful for you, or you can actually use this export button and export a spreadsheet of your inventory page and see all of the metadata for all of the files that are currently pulled up in your current search. We find this extremely useful for cataloging purposes. We do it all of the time, but I think it can be useful for file assignment purposes as well, depending on your situation. It can just be quicker to look through lines of a spreadsheet sometimes than scrolling through your search results here. But if you determine that you've narrowed down your search results to what you're looking for, then there are a couple of batch operations that you can perform in the NIMAC. The first is that you can add all of the files that you've pulled up in your search results to your download queue. So let me demonstrate that. Now, batch operations, you have to select one type of content for every file that you have in your batch. So you can't like download just the PDF of some and the full file of others. So you have to select one file type. Again, you'll see the limitation of use agreement here, and you will have to agree to that. And then at the bottom of the screen, you'll see your list of titles that you pulled in your search. You can use the checkbox at the very top to select all of them if you're positive that you wanted all 9 units of the workbooks for this particular program and grade level. Or if you just needed, let's say, units 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can select those individually. And then you hit that agreement button, and those files have been added to your download queue. Similarly, you have the same ability to batch assign files as well. Now, this can be a little bit dangerous. So you really want to make sure that all of the files that are listed are indeed the files that you want to assign to the account. Similarly to when you do a single file, you'll see your account drop down at the top where you can select the account that you want. And then again, you'll only be able to select one format for all of the files that you are batch assigning. And again, you're not locking folks into this one file format type, but you do have to select just one for this assignment. And then similarly, you can either check all of them or you can select just a subset. And then here, after you've selected the files that you want to assign, you'll hit Review Selection. And you'll have one last chance to look through your list before you assign them to your AMP. So this will give you a chance to make sure like, oh yes, those were the ones that I wanted, or oh no, I actually didn't want unit 2, I wanted unit 5. And you can go back and you can change your selection. Oh, gotta select it again. Okay. Then you hit review selection, and then once you're happy with it, then you'll hit assign to an AMP. And you'll see that both of these files were successfully assigned. This can be, again, like a huge time saver if you're needing to assign a bunch of files, but it can be a little risky. So, you know, it's it's helpful, but just be careful when you're making those assignments. Finally, I want to show you your report options that you have in the system. So the first option you have here is your download activity, which exports to a CSV file. You can sort it by your total downloads or your title, and you can utilize any date range that you'd like. And then you just hit that export report button at the bottom. Similarly, you also have the option to export your AMP assignments as well. And you can sort those by your title, by the accessible media producer, by the file format type that you're needing, or by the date that they're assigned. And then you can export those to a CSV file as well. And then finally, I also wanted to show you before we hop off here, the Louis database as well. This can be really valuable for folks who are assisting individuals in their state looking for accessible formats. Before you start production, especially with Braille, it's really valuable to know if that Braille book has already been produced from a NIMAS file. So you can go over to Louis. And the Louis Unified Search works very similarly to the NIMAC. So you want to use the unhyphenated ISBN. And Louis actually searches the NIMAC. So you'll see NIMAC system records in Louis, as well as records from many agencies, including Bookshare and APH. You can utilize filters at the side of the screen here. So if, for instance, all you want to see are records for APH, you can do that. And you can see the information of the accessible format details, as well as the contact information if you hit that expand record view, and you can quickly and easily get in touch with the agency that produced the material for ordering. Okay, with that, I will pause if anyone has any last questions. We went all the way up to the top of the hour because there is quite a bit of functionality in your authorized user account. Alexa's going to pop that exit survey link in the chat again for us. Please do take a moment to complete that so we can make sure that the trainings that we're offering to you are beneficial, and that we can expand our offerings to better support you. Does anyone have any questions at all or would like to see anything else in the system? I'm happy to show it again or show anything else. Are you seeing any questions in the chat, Alexa?
I am not.
Okay, great. Well, with that, I will go ahead and stop our recording. Thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon.